Okay, so today I'm going to be doing a little more of the RP, and of course, I basically have been doing this 5-part series of GTA 5 where I went through, again, just in brief, touching base with each one. But, like, okay, I was trying to do the single player where I tried 100% the game or just wander around after you've beaten the story. Then I tried to start a new file where I do a permadeath run off the. I do a permadeath run off the actual um game from the beginning, the campaign, where I have to do it in first person only, and no special abilities of the characters, and no uh what's the other thing? No special abilities, first person, and I can't fail a mission, right? So again, I just introduced all these. I did them briefly. It's not like I did the whole thing. Then I did online where I introduced like some rotation format where I do some of the random events on the map. Then I do one of the major jobs, right, in the jobs menu. Then I alternate until I get through all of them, like in the list form, and then I can do a heist at the end, right, where I was trying to go in order from the oldest heist to the newest, and so whatever. I touched base with that. That was actually pretty fun because I kind of kept stretching everything out and giving it sort of a bit more context to like what you have to do along the way. If I want to do a race with a bike, so I actually have to buy a bike and go to the location where the race is going to start, even though you don't technically have to do that, right? I just like to do it that way. That's kind of an RP friendly way to play, in a different sense that everything you do, you have to actually manually do, or you have to have some consequence or effort associated with it. You can't, that's the one thing that kills RP is like fast travel or just things that are magically just doing stuff that just happens on its own, stuff that is just given to you, not where you actually have to earn it or just do something to play it out. So, yeah, I tried this for basically the first time last time, or at least the first time in a long time. So my two main characters are the problem that I'm having is deciding like which ones to actually go in, and I don't even have Steam open. So how is this even working? Um, right, I don't want to go through like every single server and keep jumping around too much, but I guess so the tag that I'm using is serious roleplay, urban city roleplay, low economy, 2 years semi-serious, um, content-based server, lifestyle RP. Like I don't know what some of these are. So this one's private. You have to be like whitelisted, but no, I was doing one last time, so I forget what server that was, but I actually had a cool, interesting moment finally after waiting for a while, and it was like I get kidnapped by somebody. I can't remember what server that was actually on. It was like the UK one, and then I might actually double. I don't know if I want to do the same one, but basically I want to write out the character description. So the two main characters that I would have that I want to do here is the Dante Faust, where he's like this split personality between like this gentle, feeble old man almost, which I really can't do the voice, but split personality between that and um the actual like a demonic voice, right, where he's talking trash. So we had a cool moment like that last time at the end where I ended up dying, and I forgot it was like a permadeath character, but yeah, we had that, and then we also have an absolutist philosopher, which I haven't really done that as an RP character per se, but that's just like an actual philosophy that I've written about and different things, done a lot of debates and stuff like that to do with it, based on it. So that's the sad thing is like, oh, I should bring it to GTA RP, and this is how people will become receptive to it, rather than in a serious, literal sense, right? Using all these logical razors and stuff like that. So let me look at one thing here. I would have to decide. I want to see like what server that actually is. What server it's going to be with respect to. Hang on. I'd have to go back in my thing. So that one actually showed you it's RP friendly in the sense that a lot of these claim to be RP, but that at least you could write out a character description, whereas with the other one I couldn't do that. In fact, I still have it copy pasted from yesterday. So that was like a longer than expected session yesterday where I just did that like hang on. I just have to find out what it was. Yeah, a lot of these are sort of pseudo RP, but I don't think people are putting a lot of effort into their characters or anything like that. It's just more like, oh, we're gonna role play as a cop or a, and that's fine, but it's something more basic. You see that with No Pixel or some of these a little better, like where they're just playing actual characters outside of just jobs, like McConnell sitting on the bench or something, much more. That's kind of just unique, right? You have all these different characters, so that's kind of what mine would be like. You can still do a job and something else in the process, but lifestyle RP offline. Let me see. Or so let me see. What was I looking up? The let's see. Okay, I want to go. I'll just go to my VOD and do it. Otherwise, I'll never be able to figure out. So that one was kind of cool. At least something interesting happened with it at the end there. So let me see. This is, it's like an 8-hour episode. Now we have to watch an ad on my own channel. I'm view botting, ad botting my own channel. Does it should just show you like your history of what you, and I don't like to show this either. For some reason, I feel like it'll streamer run serious London UK based roleplay server where your imagination is your limit. I mean, I like how many of these there are. So as much as you might complain, oh, no pixel this or that, it doesn't really matter because there's so many of these. You could make it your own. They could be better. They could be less beholden to streamers or whatever. So if you could just hurry up with this, I would appreciate it. It's fucking okay. What is the server called? That's all I want. I only played on it for like 20 minutes. It seems like I did the Dante Faust already, so maybe I should do the Absolutist Philosopher. So every situation that comes up, I would have like a line or something. I won't even be able to see what it is now because I don't show when I join it. So I don't know where people could really see that one, but does it really not say what server this was on? I guess maybe when I die, it might say it. Oh yeah, oh it does. It says at the top, Legacy Roleplay. Where is that? 52 out of 120. Oh, it says that too. Never mind, I'm dumb. Yeah, let me actually try this, and it wasn't letting me make another character. I actually even tried to do that at the end, but it said, oh, you already have a character. So these are like permadeath characters too. Like if I die, then so that one's gone. So I'm not going to remake Dante Faust, but I'll try to make this guy. So this style would be like minimalistic from the outset, right? Where you would want very little. You don't want showy clothing. You want to look as generic as possible, kind of. So we're gonna flesh out what an absolutist character philosopher would look like. Well, I guess I'm more the philosopher, but like what would somebody who actually lives that way look like? So they might have a lack of regard for like shaving their hair and stuff like that, but generally they don't care about their appearance in terms of like they will have bland clothing because they don't want to be defined by those performative aspects and expression. So this is going to be a very deep psychological, philosophical thing that people won't really get or understand what they're dealing with, and it doesn't matter, right? Like we just have to do our own thing and not let other people ruin it. But yeah, so this is the kind of thing you got to really commit to. And let me see here. So I'll even leave the last name as an unknown. Let me see here. So one life, yes, and then a mysterious man who, I guess I can show now. Well, yeah, okay, it'll be the same one. A mysterious man who believes that he is. Oh yeah, I'm extrapolating even further on it here. A mysterious man who believes that he is the reincarnation of an absolutist from another world long ago. While he will never admit this directly, he constantly espouses absolutist philosophy. What is absolutist philosophy? Oh, I meant to put a question mark here, or because I copy pasted it, it didn't. transfer that. Spend any time around him and you will be sure to find out. Maybe more than you even want to. He dislikes making eye contact. These are some of my RP lines too. Like, I'm putting some of my classic RP lines in the description. Why? Because there is no need to look at those. He can already see through. And no, he doesn't talk to himself. It's called thinking. You should try it sometime. Code name, elitist victim blamer. Like, bro, this is a classic. Your name contains disallowed words. Oh, maybe. Okay. Well, that could actually be my last name, but it's to imply something about the character too. I'm gonna get banned for some RP. I don't even mind how he looks. Can I like do my clothing, or maybe that'll be fine. You want to look kind of as generic as possible. And so we go through the little tutorial part here, right? And then, oh no, I don't like the clothing though. I gotta change that. But the last name is to imply that I don't have a last name because, right? Well, how would I explain it in RP? Like, I never knew my parents. You know, I have no parents. I was born of circumstances beyond your comprehension. So, again, the whole reincarnation idea that you don't want to be reduced and specified to some lowly, you know, human level of like, oh, these are my parents, this is where I grew up, all these kind of things that you didn't choose, non-choice reaction, right, that people insist upon and take pride in and glorify, right? You wouldn't want, oh, this is a different car than we got with the other character. I guess you could say you should play what? In first person for immersive purposes, but I kind of don't like to sometimes. So this is where you start, which I'm surprised not to see more people here then. Or you could always troll and grief people here too. So I might get in trouble for my last name being unknown, but what if that's part of my RP? I genuinely don't know what my oh, I don't have my belt on. Is it K or is it B? See, these servers are always different. Belt on with what you have to do. So fuel is a lot lower here. Look at how fast this truck fucking guzzles it, but that just means it started lower too because you know, it's a case where I should almost stay in character as I'm just doing commentary, but I guess since I am a philosopher on the subject anyway, it's something that comes out. You know, I play into it all the time. But yeah, see, the stimuli acme is in, I should even say this, like in character. Like we're coming out of some for the first time, right? What was my button for it? Yes, the stimuli acme is indeed preserved in this era. As you see that, a reference to something sexual. That is an absolutist line. Like they would say, or actually it wasn't an absolutist character who said that, but it was some other circumstance. But it's like you're observing something that is sort of hard to explain. Like that, what is the stimuli acme? Of course, and I shouldn't have to even explain it, but the act of reducing it to a lowest common denominator, a social contrivance, would defeat the purpose and value and meaning of it in the first place, right? If they could understand it, they would already. So the fact that they had to ask means that they are incapable or unwilling, because you cannot dissuade with reason what came about by desire, like with religion. So, for example, this is a pretty core absolutist concept here. Like, the fact that you need to explain something means that people are already unwilling or incapable of understanding it, because if they have an infinite objective mind just like you do, so they could understand and comprehend it just the same, but it shows you they don't want to. They have some incentive not to. They have some ulterior motive or other, you know, dogmatic persuasion that they have some incentive tied to. So the reason behind that is the simple fact that wait, where is it taking me? I don't remember doing this last time. Let me think for a second. this will just give me an excuse to go, and I brought my debate format ideas to I wonder if it goes down much here. Like, in realistic sense it should. Like, let me think. I should almost talk to myself as I'm doing it. But I don't know how or if people can see your player card, but it's so let me just walk around a little bit. So let me think. What was I saying? Oh yeah, to explain to others something that they don't understand would be pointless and futile, and the reason why is because the act of doing so would only be required if they already lack the comprehension, the capacity to understand. If they were capable of understanding, they would see it already, because it would be self-evident. So the fact that they don't see it means they have some other ulterior motive or incentive, and you cannot dissuade with reason what came about by desire. And also, again, if they were willing to or able to, they would already see it, so it's pointless to explain it. And the act of trying to explain it would require you to reduce it to a lowest common denominator, in which you would have to dumb it down to the point where it defeats the purpose, like through folly favoritism, like kind of what I'm doing right here by playing a video game, right, and doing it in RP or whatever the case may be, right? I'm dumbing it down to a level that is not intrinsic to the concept. So now you're extrapolating. You're like, oh, I have all these great logical razors and ideas, but let me write a book about it with fantastical fictional characters who have special abilities and powers and, all this kind of stuff. So then it gets bogged down. It gets bogged down and defeats the purpose of what would have actually been valuable in there. Like, oh, it has all these cool ideas, but all these valuable ideas that could be useful in real life and logical razors and things that could illuminate ideas, certain concepts to people. But the reason why that's not valuable is because it gets bogged down. Oh, you're not really focused on that. That's just a little subliminal gesture in the background. The good guy beats the bad guy, and that's the whole value of it. But we focus on the power. Look at the power levels. Look at the Super Saiyan. Look at the superheroes and all these kind of things. Like, we focus on that instead of the actual right value and ideas and concepts and usefulness that any of this could have. So because of folly favoritism, you end up I should almost do it in like a soapbox sense, like I'm standing somewhere and just doing this, and hey, that sounds like Lamar. Why is he acting like I'm not even anywhere near him? Or maybe he's not coming after me, but let me look for a clothing store, which may have been where I just even left off. I'm just RP walking. No, but that's a good idea. I should almost soapbox it. Like, I'm just talking to myself as I'm going around. Oh, that's the crouch. We have ascertained so far that the stimuli acme is preserved in this era. Right, like we're talking to ourselves. We're planning it out. This ostentatious performative aspects of how these beings dress is beneath me. They express themselves that way to compensate for the fact that they don't express themselves in ways that actually impact their lives. That's why they have tattoos and clothing and jewelry and appeal to superficiality. And the reason why they do it is because of the simple fact that they're trying to overcompensate for the fact that their life is completely controlled and reduced to a contrived structure in which they have no impact and influence on that. So they overcompensate by trying to express themselves and have an outlet in terms of superficial things such as tattoos and clothing and piercings, etc. They care about those things so much, and folly favoritism even, because they lack the capacity to understand that they're trying to overcompensate for having an outlet of expression. See, inherently they would have that need to express themselves in a more direct way. They would have the need to express themselves in ways that might actually have impact on their life, like something directly tied to functionalism or activism or politics or whatever the case may be. Even those things are extended and overextended and contrived too. But also, it's the fact that, and there's the sense of talking this quickly and absolutism and self-awareness. Like, I'm aware of what I'm talking about and why I'm talking about it, but also the fact that you talk so quickly as if to keep up with the infinite objective mind that the subjective human mouth and language can barely keep up with. Right, just like reducing much of human contrivances, reducing the infinite objective mind to the physical state, the lowly physical limited state that's reactionary and in front based on everything that's only in front of you. And beyond that, you also have the simple ability to consider the fact that they compensate with performative aspects because they don't actually value their lives, or they are reduced to such a structure that they can't do anything that would actually impact their lives. And so again, instead of doing something that has direct impact in the world, in your own life, zero-sum means, some functional basis, instead of doing something that has actual significance and consequence, you resign yourself or are reduced to a contrived state where you are reduced to a half-mass human function in which you're able to then decide to value things that don't matter, like, again, superficiality, appearances, what you wear, things like that, rather than something that actually has impact. So it's a way to appease that psychological need to actually do something of significance, but then you reduce it to something that doesn't actually have a significance or impact just because society or the structure around you doesn't allow you to do things that have impact, and those sort of have a monopoly around them and are very controlled. So see, I'm saying that actually out loud, even though, oh, I didn't mean to do that. So how do you actually buy shit here? I forget, like, the interaction menu and shit. Oh, here we go. Like, this one's much more so all I want is something much more basic, because of course I would say that you want everything to be as generic as possible, because then let your actions speak for themselves and don't overcompensate with are these things I actually have to buy? Or in a certain minimalistic sense, you might not wear anything at all. A nudist colony concept certainly comes up in absolutist thought at times as well. Come on, what's the most generic one? Fuck, all these are too flashy and showy. I'm surrounded by ostentatious fools. Dude, this is good. You don't even need anybody to, I don't know what this is, man. What the fuck? First of all, I can barely see it. Like, why is it so zoomed in? Oh, here we go. It's got to just be like this one seems very basic. Yeah, that one's good because you can't even see it. There was like a more bland one. Oh yeah, like that one's fine. But I like how he just goes. Okay, there we go. So that one's pretty basic. Then pants. Wait. Oh my god, it gives you a pretty good variety, but I don't understand how if you're actually buying it or what. That one seems okay. Just the shirt now. This one's very ostentatious and showy. Anything with logos, anything that has some, it would be as simple as possible. Not making reference to anything, not being reduced to anything. If you label me, you negate me, sort of a concept that is a human concept, but just, not an absolutist thing, but it just would apply in the sense that, anything that is going to reduce or label or somehow limit the infinite object. Oh yeah, like that one's fine. Even though it's ripped, which I don't know if that's intended. That happened like on another server too. Or even the glasses, I don't think would see. There's like a non-choice reaction concept to do with things like this too. Like, oh, somebody wears glasses, that means they're smart, right? Some sort of preconceived notion like that. But in reality, it's the case where, how do I accept it then? Okay, like that's fine. V to toggle, A and D to adjust the position. So like, how do I just get out of here now? Save outfit. So, okay. I don't know whether I bought anything in doing that, but the whole point is that, again, you would not... Yeah, that is an interesting idea that you would just do it like, I could just soapbox it and I'm talking to myself like I would be anyway, like on stream. But let me think. I have the ability to... What was I saying? You would be minimalistic, maybe even nudist colony, not draw any attention to things that don't have significance, let reality, inherent objective reality speak for itself. the absolutist makes no claims in that way. They would actually be simply cutting down the fallacious and contradictory claims of contrivance, certainly that have no credibility, to outwardly insist on others the way that it's done in the indoctrination of youth and the reinforcement of contrivance over time. That you would have there was something important I was saying in there which I forgot. Just like how ostentatious something is with all the labeling, and you reduce something infinite. I don't even need the vehicle. The machination process in this era is limiting indeed. As a see, I should just pick like a spot maybe and do that. We must observe the machination process in this era, and it is inadequate overcompensation for the nature of inhibition, as the absolutists would say, of course, that there would be a contrivance response claim here. For example, people may say that, oh, whatever would you do without the benefits of society, without all the benefits of its collective technology and machination, and the benefits of just collective human function altogether? But the absolutists would respond in kind. Whatever would we do? Imagine what we could do without its inhibitions as well. So, for example, you're inhibited by society in so many ways. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do many things, right? The world is not yours for the taking. All the resources are controlled. They're owned by either a person or a government or a society in some way. That, oh, you can't go here, you can't fish here, you can't hunt here, you can't do that. Nature's resources are not yours for the taking, as if the world was a village of 100. And so in that concept, you would realize that, right, society would justify itself by saying, well, what would you do without the benefits of society? But an absolutist would say, what would you do without its inhibitions? The world would be yours. It would be your oyster. It would be Darwinism. It would be yours for the taking, and it would be more in the realm of inherent reality. And so that would be the point that it would be the point that you basically realize, I should almost find a place with a mirror to do this in. Yeah, I don't even have to come out of the RP, because the character itself is literally doing the same thing. They're aware of what they're doing. So it wouldn't matter. I kind of like that as a characterization. If somebody comes upon me, so be it. If not, it doesn't matter, right? Like, I am the RP. So let's get back to the topic of non-choice reaction as we observe the nature of this contrivance response state that we're a part of. The non-choice reaction would be a lot of insistence and preconception on certain aspects, like, oh, the fact that you're wearing glasses, it's not just a functional basis that you happen to have trouble seeing as an eyesight aid. Oh no, of course, it's the fact that it's associated with being intelligent or smart or something like that. So it's a non-choice reaction basis that, oh, the fact that you maybe talk a certain way isn't necessarily your choice, but that'll be seen as defining in some way. Or like your age, you can't choose your age, or like your gender, or like your race. So the absolutists wouldn't dismiss such things, not because of some gratifying, oh, look at how accepting we are and equalizing and all this. No, it would be rather an impact basis. You don't choose it, nor does it have any impact, so why would we care about it? We would care about your ability, your action, things like that on a more direct level. And then beyond that, you also have the ability to consider the fact that that again, the absolutists, as far as inhibition, would realize that, again, what would you do without, we need some histrionics here, if we were appealing to the lowest common denominator of the masses. We could be doing it almost to these human functions around here. I could use human function to refer to the NPCs, but I guess it would be referring really to everybody who's a willing part of society, who would vouch for it, or who would willingly practice it or place undue emphasis on it. And then we can look down upon them like the insects that they are, mindlessly scurrying about like bees in a hive, working for their queen bee, finding a false sense of meaning in zero-sum means, and also glorifying inherent reality to be something more than what it is, to actually reduce it to a state where it's something less. The old false duality, opposite interpretation, contrivance response state. So Look at these lesser beings scurrying about with their pathetic lives. Not even in some idyllic alternative, but in the way that you would realize that exclusionary to everything else, the outward insistence of a contrived state, where it indoctrinates them at a young age before they can think for themselves, where it also it requires constant reinforcement through externality, where it constantly, through the media, through social contrivance, through stigma, through structure reduction, all of these different methods, right? It has to reinforce itself, and as a result of doing that, you would realize that there is no there's no basis of credibility. There's not one single standard that would lead to the exact state that you happen to live in. It's just reactionary, it's arbitrary. And it's also the fact that there's not any consistent basis or credibility that you could use, because it's a non-basis of self, dependent over extended pretense, that necessary invalid, cognitive dissonance inducing. It's also the fact that it would be outwardly insisting upon others, right? So you see this a lot with the open relationship as part of this half-mass stimuli acme state that we've already observed and proven. We can use the very environment around us to prove the nature of this state of the era. So the stimuli acme is preserved, as we've seen evidence by obsession and fixation with it. As the absolutists may say, that repression leads to obsession. So the inherent state, if you lived in a nudist colony and didn't reduce and restrict what is so basic as the human body and the basic natural state of being, if you didn't restrict and inhibit that so much, you wouldn't obsess over it so much either. You wouldn't say, oh, look, it's a nip slip, it's this and that. You would say, oh, no, it's just a basic human body, and you wouldn't be so beholden to or controlled by it, because you would be at peace with your own inherent nature and the natural tendency of the process. And also, you have you have the ability to consider that humor is nothing more than cognitive dissonance, you realizing the artifice of your process but still practicing it anyway. So it's the discomfort of your own contrivance state. And you also have the recognition that this would almost work better if there was another person too, like who's like, we're teaching them about the nature of the world from an absolutist perspective, and they're like our little sensei, and we're training, you know, we're the sensei and we're training them. So what was the other point I was getting to? The stimuli acme is preserved, and we also see severe signs that the folly favoritism is still being valued, that they need to distract themselves to reinforce their state. So it shows a lack of credibility that they would outwardly insist and tell others what to do, collectively even, but they have no credibility to do that because they focus on things that are not real, whether through the means of religion or whether through the means of folly favoritism, escapism, distraction. So how credible is such a source as to outwardly insist and force their standards onto others when they aren't even consistent in their own? There's no consistent standard that could be used to justify or rationalize it. And even beyond that, you have the recognition that they could not rationalize their state of being, nor could they actually value it consistently. So there's no credibility that would point to that exclusionary basis where you must do this one thing only, right? Live in this exact artificial, overextended, contrivance state. He keeps taking cover without me actually meaning to. Yeah, this would be like one example. Like, we're sort of soapboxing it, like, oh, look at us, we're trying to speak to the lowly human function masses below, or just we understand that they wouldn't get it, so what's even the point? And more to the point, it wouldn't matter whether they got it or not, nor are we trying to convince them. We're simply aware of it ourselves, and so we would live in a minimalistic way. But see how you could get in trouble for that, even whether in a literal sense in society or not. The fact that, oh, you go around, like, this would be a fallacy of discrediting an absolutist. Like, oh, well, if you believe in the nudist colony, then why don't you walk around naked? But then if you did, this overextended, outwardly insisting, stimuli acme preserving society would absolutely prevent you from doing that, because see, it would be their reaction. It wouldn't be you that has any problem with doing that. It would be society that would have a problem, and they would arrest you, or because they're so uncomfortable with their own inherent nature and their own human basic body, right, that everybody has and you're aware of. You're so uncomfortable with that and have to censor reality to maintain your contrivance state that you have to literally censor the human body and any appearance or glorify or stigmatize any mention of it or relation to it. And so because of that, if you went up to a microphone to discuss the merits of a nudist colony, or not even to argue for it, but to simply observe it, then you would basically decide to what the fuck was that? You would basically decide to be discredited by them. You'd say, oh, like again, you see this with certain people like Charlie Kirk or somebody. It'd be like, oh, look at you holding a Starbucks coffee cup, and you might be arguing for environmentalism or whatever. It's the same thing. Oh, you might argue for a nudist colony, but look at you, you're wearing clothes. We sure dunked on you there. But wait a second, if I wasn't wearing clothes, then in this environment that's highly controlled, right, you would probably kick me out, or stigmatize me, or at the very least you would only be able to focus on the fact that they're naked, because again, your minds are beholden to the stimuli acme. So it's your own standard that prevents it from happening. And so now even having a discussion about it is discredited by, oh, your own intolerance of it is what prevents me from doing that. So it would make no sense, right? You have to adhere to their contrivance state to even broach the subject, which they're only seeing from their own worldview that they seek to reinforce. So this is just a good excuse to do what would be effectively my debate format, but I'm not sure how much interest I have in actually interacting with other people. Bro is literally me. So again, what would be a pacifist views on violence or action sort of related elements here? You would be more so deliberate or reactive, right? You're not seeking conflict out. You might take the path of least resistance, but also you also sort of remove the need. This is a strong, stark, absolutist concept. You wouldn't so much create conflict or deal with conflict. You would remove the need for conflict altogether, which goes along with the minimalistic ideation that we're talking about. There's also the fact that you have okay, you'd be minimalistic, and the reason why is because or to the extent that, let's say, an absolutist did want to kill somebody, they would give no sign. There would be no argument. There would be no fighting. There would be no angry sort of disposition. It would seem like everything's perfectly normal, and then all of a sudden you'd kill them in their sleep. So you wouldn't give any sign. If you make the decision to do it for whatever reason and standard and consistency you might have, right? That's one of the core principles of an absolutist is consistency. It's not so much that they're telling anybody what to do or that they have a particular exact measure. It's that whatever measure you might have, you would have to be consistent in it to be credible or to have value. You can't just pretend to have it. No, the more consistent you are, the more credible it is. The less consistent you are, obviously it's self-invalidating. And so it would define value by ability and by consistency. And also it would allow you to consider the fact that you would consider the fact, again, like violence or intention, you wouldn't give any sign of your intent. You might make the decision. It would be almost like what you see in gangster movies at times. Like they do a little look, a knowing look to the camera or whatever, but they won't give any sign, and they're friends and they shake hands, and then the next day they end up ordering a hit on that guy, and they end up dead. So it's like, if you make the decision, it's not useful to get angry, or emotion is nothing but irrational insistence upon the self. Another absolutist razor, of course. All of these I've written and discussed and debated over time. How can we hear a pedestrian so well over that? So emotion is nothing but irrational insistence upon the self. The absolutists would be more goal focused. Like, okay, let's say they decide to kill somebody, they would do it quietly and silently and without any compunction. They wouldn't, either they decide to do it or they don't, but whether they do it, they would never give the other person a sign so that it could be prevented or inhibited, or anybody could be aware of it. They would just do it without any warning. So it might seem cowardly to some, like, oh, that's like killing somebody in their sleep. But the reality is that if you decide to do it, then just do it the most efficient way possible, rather than calling attention to itself as if you have to almost justify or overcompensate for yourself, like you're not really sure of yourself, or you would make that decision. So that's the whole principle of an absolutist philosophy. Would be, it's not so much saying what specifically to do or what set of standards to follow, but it would hold accountable whatever standard you have. So if two absolutists meet in battle or in some conflict with each other, they would respect one another for their consistency or not for their lack thereof, right? So it wouldn't be so much that, oh, I hate you and you're wrong and I disagree with you. It would be more like, I have my measure, you have your measure, and whoever believes their measure most strongly would succeed and prevail in this fight. I'm sort of just laying out, like in a historical context, this is how I would say it. That you know, if you believe so strongly in what you believe in, like what is right, as somebody else believed in what was wrong, then you should have stopped them from doing it. You're just a complacent, mindless, half-assed human function who wouldn't even bother to go about that. So it's like, you're not really pursuing it. So somebody who's evil and terrible and does all these horrible things believed so strongly in what they were doing that they were able to be successful at it, whereas you didn't believe as strongly in what you were doing. And if you did, then your ability would match theirs, or collectively, right, people who believe what you do, like social Darwinism, would overcome what they're doing, and so it would end up prevailing for that reason alone. And so that would be the point. It wouldn't be about, it would be come down to the reality of ability versus morality. Like, oh, you can believe whatever you want. Like, I have there's an absolute expression that would be like this: if you could go back if you could go back in time and tell the Native Americans one thing, would it be that, oh, the big bad evil Europeans are coming, right, but that doesn't do them any good? Or would you tell them how to make a better weapon that might give them a better fighting chance? So it comes down to the machination process and technology and ability and resources and means, the means argument. It comes down to ability, not morality. So even if we insist upon that as a pretense, like, oh, morally this is right, this is wrong, it wouldn't matter. The way to do it would be on a functional basis. So you wouldn't go back and say, oh, these big bad evil people are coming to get you. You would instead say, here's how to make this weaponry that could best help you defend yourself. So that would be the point. That's the objective reality of how the world actually works, but that would be the absolutist point of view and lens as well on the subject, that you would realize that ability is what's defining in machination. So even to best achieve or outwardly insist upon your moral fiber, that you might, of course, morality is nothing but the plaything of conquerors, that those who act all self-righteous are merely the descendants of people who did the very things that those same people would condemn and would, you know, outwardly. So, you know, you'll be an empire built on the backs of slaves and on the graves of the conquered people, and yet you would act all self-righteous from that point on and act like, oh, look at all these other people, you know, countries or people doing terrible things. So the only reason why you're in such a position where you're in a comfort, in the relative comforts and everything like that, to be able to pass judgment on others, is because you are living on the graves of conquered people and in a country built on the backs of slaves, just as a general expression. Forget about the specific application, but that would be the point, that morality is nothing but the plaything of conquerors when history is written in blood, and the real way it's carved is just whoever is most capable. So like with Genghis Khan, don't hate the player, hate the game, that he was just better at it than everybody else. Like other kings weren't trying to do the same thing. There's always this idyllic nonsense that, oh, in history you would have I'm just sort of fleshing out the thought process, right? These are all absolutist ideas and concepts and principles and perspectives that I've discussed over the years. So like Genghis Khan, it's not that he was uniquely evil. That wasn't what made him why we know who he is. It's because he was uniquely gifted and skilled and talented at what he was doing and effective and got results, whereas every other king of the same era, maybe not every other king, but, you know, that's how history is written. Like, everyone was always trying to conquer everybody and fighting with everybody, and there's like this weird thing that, oh, everybody was just holding hands, and then this big bad guy came along, and oh, how horrible. It has more to do with resources, with means, with ability, with strategy, with everything like that. That's what ultimately dictated it. So it's not that, oh, he's uniquely evil. Is that he... I like how these NPCs are talking as if they can actually hear me, but I'm not even talking in game, assuming that would even be what they're reacting to. But yeah, it's not that they would be uniquely evil, that they would be better at the same measure that everyone was practicing. Oh, these other kings were trying to attack and kill each other too and conquer each other, but they weren't as good at it, so you never even hear who they are, but you'll hear who he is because he was just better at it. So again, how do I apply this exactly in an RP sense? I don't know. I don't want to seek it out, but I also don't know, like, the bar with respect to... That was a pretty good fleshing out of some of the absolutist principles, though. So you wouldn't seek out conflict. You would almost consider it beneath you, certainly amongst the kind who would... And look how I ended up back here, even though I walked all around. This one, at least, I don't have to do as much of a voice on, but that sort of takes on the, like, think about the character Lucky from Waiting for Godot, where he kind of rambles on, right, in a sort of an intellectual way when they take his hat off. That could be sort of a similar vibe that we have, right, where you go into all this philosophy on a coin flip. So you're just kind of minding your own business, but if somebody triggers you in some way or brings up a fallacy, I must point them out when they arise. But then again, it's pointless, as I've already pointed out. So it's like the human mind is so objective and powerful that it would remove the need for social contrivance in all forms anyway. So we'd have to worry about fuel, we'd have to worry about food, but like those bars at the bottom, I'm not sure actually which each one is. One of them is going to be hunger, one of them is going to be, like, I actually don't know. And this is like a permanent type character too. Oh, for fuck's sake, why am I even doing this? One of these is going to be actually a player, but I don't see why they'd be following the laws either. So you don't have like an actual place to sleep here. But no, I'm mostly just trying to walk around and just see what happens RP wise. That burger shot always seems like a hot spot, honestly. There's like one burger shot that's I don't know if it's called a burger shot. Oh, it is. This always seems like such a hot spot at least other servers and stuff. But we just kind of sit there and walk around. So I got accused on the other character, which I won't hold against them even if I see those same people, because we're totally unrelated to each other. But like, you know, that would be kind of disingenuous RP wise if I connected it or tried to seek revenge. But there were these two guys who were sitting there, right? And they had like a Hummer type big car, and he said, "Oh, you slashed my tire. Somebody slashed my tires," and they thought it was me. And obviously that Dante Faust character was you know, not, I didn't do anything. I didn't actually do it. You could see that, but they accuse me, and then I say no, it wasn't me, and then they believe me, and then I walk away. But then because Dante Faust has that devilish other part of him, he had to say like, but if you do that again, right, like falsely accuse me or pick me up, and like he grabbed me and brought me to the other guy, then I'll slash more than just your tires. And then he used that as a baseline to attack me, just like, then he had his dog attack me, and then I said E2 Brute, like fucking, because his dog's called Brutus. Like it was a pretty good moment, right? So that was kind of organic. Your seatbelt is on. How is it on if I'm not even in the fucking car? Like I don't have much motivation or desire to do anything in particular, but I think you can like sort of, can I like slash sit down in a nearby chair? Yeah, let's do like the bench McConnell. I'm copying McConnell, but it's a good idea, honestly. Or maybe they don't have any benches, so they're trying to discourage that. But how could you not have a bench? Or I should pretend like I'm talking to an NPC and explaining that would be kind of cool. Like I sit across, this would work as a bench. We sit across from like an NPC and we're explaining it to them. Let me try to, oh, they really don't want me to sit, do that. Okay, here we go. Slash sit. Oh yeah, that works pretty well. Now we just sit here and we reflect to ourselves. Right, and sort of we're just enjoying the view and the value. This reminds me of the absolutist principle that in the modern day, somebody could be looking at a screen and you would consider that perfectly normal. They could be looking at a computer screen 10 hours a day, and that would be seen as normal behavior and even desirable somehow. But if somebody was staring at a wall, that would seem odd, as if the infinite objective nature of the mind is not coming out in either sense. But one seeks to subvert it, almost like we fear our own thought and mind, where we try to distract ourselves by looking at a screen and react to that and depend on externality. Whereas if we're staring at a wall, we could be thinking with our infinite objective mind about anything, like how what we're doing here. We could just be looking and thinking. We don't need any externality. We aren't controlled by it. We don't depend on it because our mind is more powerful. And even in the case of staring at the screen, which is supposedly more desirable and better as a form of behavior, it would still be the case of the mind, but in this case you're not stimulating it, you're simply dumbing it down or trying to distract from it, typically at least. So that is an interesting dichotomy. You could be in a prison cell and be more free than a person who's out in the wild in society, because in the prison you're free with your mind, whereas in society you are controlled in every area potentially, depending on externality, depending on the folly, favoritism to distract you. You always need something from externality because you're not at peace with yourself or reality or your own mind, your own infinite objective thoughts. So what happens there is the simple realization that you could be more free and find more value in that. So look at that analogy of somebody staring at a wall versus somebody staring at a screen. Is one really better than the other? And is there really any difference? Because in both cases, your mind is the dictating factor, but one of them seeks to distract it, potentially folly, favoritism, and the other seeks to embrace this infinite objective nature. Or you might just realize it comes to the same thing. In either case, you're thinking, but in one, we somehow stigmatize and condemn it, like almost like we fear our own infinite objective nature in our thought. But in the other, we embrace it. So you would rather stare at a screen and consume images of folly, like mindless entertainment escapism, but you wouldn't sit there and just think about the various anything in the universe, like what we're doing right here, right? That wouldn't be a good thing. So you underestimate and even stigmatize and even condemn and even reject and even fear your own inherent state, your own inherent objective mind, infinite objective mind. But even beyond that, you also reject the fact that you sort of embrace the physical state and reduce your infinite objective mind to those terms, which is a lot of what contrivance is, of course. And so you could have there could be more truth in fiction than in the artifice of social contrivance, but also there could be more truth in this, in just your own thoughts without being inhibited by others, than there would be in any amount of interaction with them. So there'd be more value in this aspect. It's like we're talking to ourselves by looking into the water, right? The fact that you're even talking would be unnecessary too, right? But just to simulate some value in the RP of it, right? This is sort of what the character would do, where he's talking to himself. Like you're not seeking anything out, but oh, now do I really have to do that to /stand? Or it doesn't seem to even be working. Command is not available, so like, what do you mean? Oh, that's stupid that you have to do the same thing again. Yeah, not only can you not sit in actual GTA, whether online or single player, you can't even fucking crouch. Like, let's just walk around, we'll buy some food or some shit. What do I have in my inventory here anyway? You have, we fucked up the graphics. Sometimes bug out like this. What is happening with this? Why is it not letting me close that? Like, I don't even know what I did. 2 would be the phone. What is happening now, bro? Cancel the currently playing emote, which I can't do, and I don't know how I opened that either. Okay, bro. Some of this is obviously the graphics. Maybe my computer can't handle it in some way, but this is a store.
Is there anything I can do for such a special customer?
So yeah, we bought a couple things here last time, like water, maybe taco, I don't know. Or yeah, even our taste in terms of food. We would want the most minimalistic thing of all. We wouldn't want too many ingredients, or we wouldn't want things that are unnecessary. So water is actually quite a minimalistic thing that we would want. And also a food item that would be very basic, like just plain rice or plain bread or plain, even the vegan thing is a bit ostentatious, but it could be it'd be something even more basic and simple than that. I don't know if that's entirely consistent. Yeah, I basically laid out a lot of what the character is about, but let's see if we have another event happen at Burger Shot, even though, I wasn't trying to make anything happen anyway. But no, I genuinely don't even know what those bars on the bottom are, so. Why does it seem like there's just nobody here? Or maybe they're avoiding me because I'm this crazy guy who keeps talking to himself, is how it would appear, which is totally not in real life, like what I'm doing right now in a chat with like 0 people, right? It comes to the same thing. What's the difference between talking to yourself and otherwise? Now they'll accuse me of slashing somebody's tire. Because really, there'd be no reason to go here anyway. Like, what am I doing in there? So there's at least a player. Now accuse me of something and have your dog sick me. It happened in just right this area over here, even though I don't really even see where I'm going. But no, I'm content just to do the RP internally, right? We're internalizing what the character is all about. So let me look at. I don't like what's happening with the graphics, but I don't know. I don't want to like reset the server, or I don't know actually what happens with the etiquette of like quitting out and stuff. How do I see my overall inventory, like with all the shit that we just saw? Like Z is like we go prone. This could almost give you an unfair advantage too, that you'd be sort of cheating in a way that. Okay, let me look at this. And again, the problem with these is all the servers are different too, with how this works. DP clothing, toggle phone, emote, menu down, alternative left, right. How about just the overall inventory mode? Speed limiter, throw your weapon, vehicle control. Wait, what? Weird. I don't know how you can see that then. Like your actual base inventory. And we have this shit open too in a way that I don't mean to. You go prone like that. You have first person there. The tab is just this, but there's something more that you should have to do. I feel like there should be some rule of like where you have to quit out, like whether it would be in your apartment, which of course we don't even have one at this point. I don't think it's just like this has happened a number of times, so it's certainly not the server's fault. It's something with my computer, apparently, that we can't handle the graphics, or it comes back in after a while, but it's kind of like there'd be sort of a minimalistic approach that like you could live off stuff, like live off the trash or something, right? Not that you would really have to or need to do that, but just that you could. Right, so you remove the need for a lot of society's contrivances. So again, it's the same sort of path of least resistance. We don't even care about the graphics, or in a life sense, it's an analogy for real life. Like all the things that you struggle with for what you think you need, you don't really need, right? You have 3 meals a day, you could easily live with 1 or 2. Or amalgam theory, you would treat all human beings as the human family. So how could you have 3 meals while somebody else only is starving? Or even a greater sense, you would have the ability to consider that, right, you struggle against contrivance for things that you don't even need. So it's not that you would struggle harder or achieve something within that, but you would also just remove the need by not even requiring that in the first place. Let me quit out here for a second because I don't understand what's happening, but the problem is that you're in a position where I don't know how you actually open the inventory overall. Right, well, you open it like in the shop. Maybe you'd have to just go to the shop and do it there, like switch everything, waiting for game to shut down. I don't want to go through like 100 different servers and try different things that way because it feels a little bit stupid. Right, like you would I don't know. I feel like then that's not a cool way to do it because that's what makes RP sort of stuff difficult. People would have to come on here regularly and commit and really be part of the community, which is fine if people enjoy that. But like it makes it difficult because people, right, will come in, just do a little thing, grief somebody or whatever. That's why they make it so hard to get into some of them. They'll come in, they'll just have a quick experience and then move on. They don't really care. They're not really committed to it. Right, I'm sort of like that too, but my form of RP wouldn't be so aggressive or disruptive. In fact, the last one I didn't even do anything. What's weird is I don't even have Steam open, so it's like it just knows my. I guess it's just tied to my GTA 5 game anyway, but it's weird. Yeah, last time I had Steam open at least. I'm not even logged in. I don't even have it open, so. But no, I consider this whole thing like an indictment against Rockstar themselves, where. Wow, it's already been an hour, huh? I consider this an indictment against Rockstar, where I decide to. That they wouldn't have this just in their game inherently. Let me see kind of where we would be left off, because like that etiquette is kind of bad, that you should have to log out in a particular place of significance, like a apartment or some in your car, something a little more substantial. So I decided to not do the other character again, because these are like permanent characters where like I died and then I could have waited for a paramedic if I realized that, and I did wait for a while, and it even said some nearby bystander called one, whether it's an NPC or whether a player did that. But the problem was then I got impatient. I waited a very long time, and then I sort of tried to respawn, but then I didn't realize that that would mean I would just die because I was a permanent character when I created it, right? I forgot that, so that's a big deal, because now I can never use that character again, let's say on the server or whatever. But no, these would be the two characters. The other one, I was struggling with doing the voice. That was my main problem with it, that I couldn't. But no, I want a server that's almost like not related to anything, right? Like it's roleplay for roleplay's sake, not trying to ingratiate itself into other things like, oh, well, I mean, you could have those things as an option. What was that image there? What the fuck was that? He's still alive. Let me read my loadout then too. Unknown, again, that's not actually his last name, but that's kind of part of the point. 698 cash, 5,000 in bank, gender male. The picture is blurry as hell. A mysterious man who believes that he's the reincarnation of an absolutist from another world long ago. While he will never admit this directly, he constantly espouses absolutist philosophy. What is absolutist philosophy? Spend any time around him and you will be sure to find out. Maybe more than you even want to. He dislikes making eye contact, which you got to remember that when we're talking. Why? Because there is no need to look at those he can already see through. And no, he doesn't talk to him. These are both like RP lines that I would use. All right? Like, you know, why don't you ever, somebody would ask him, like, why don't you look at my eyes when I'm talking to you? I have no need to look at those who I can already see through. And then, no, he doesn't talk to himself. It's called thinking. Like, oh, you talk to yourself. Yeah, of course I do. It's called thinking. You should try it sometime. Codename elitist victim blamer, because he's, you know, that'd be part of the ideation. Spawn now, last position. So that's kind of seamless, though, the way you can get back in there. I could pretend like I'm building my own little house here. So the one thing I can't do is my inventory. I don't know how to access it. I have no idea. It's unfortunate, but I'm drinking water. So let me pay attention. Which one did that refill? That's the top bar that doesn't even appear normally, which doesn't even make sense. What the fuck is the inventory button, man? God damn it. Don't these things have like a wiki type shit to go along with them? F1 no, F2 no, F3 no, F4 no, F5 no. I'll just press like every fucking button. I don't know. That's the clipboard, player list. P is the phone. For fuck's sake, man. Why is something as simple? Okay, K. For some reason it's K, which I guess I should have known from the shop. Let me just eat it, or I'll put it on my, yeah, use. Which bar went up with that? Hunger. I don't know what the other bars are then. I have no idea. I thought those would be the bars. Like, whatever. I'm not going to need too much more to last whatever minimalistic shit I'm doing. I have no need for walls except to keep your prying eyes from outwardly insisting upon my minimalistic state. So you would have this notion that I don't have them for my benefit. I'd have them for your benefit. The same thing like with the nudist colony idea. I don't wear clothes because I need them or because I I would want them or need the artifice that's attached to them or the censoring of reality that would be necessary to preserve the stimuli acme state. Oh no, of course. I only wear them for your benefit because you're so obsessed, because your repression of the stimuli acme inherent tendency associated, because of your repression of your own inherent desired suggested tendencies to go along with it, would be that you need to censor reality to feel comfortable in your own skin within the half-mass state that you've been reduced to, rather than embracing your inherent nature, or at least being aware of it and actively vouching for the contrivance that you counteract it with, right? You're not even comfortable with that, so you have to censor reality and overextend and outwardly insist and seek constant reinforcement through externality, through a constant contrivance state. And so why do we need other people when they're fucking just gonna reduce us to a lowest common denominator, which would be consistent with the actual absolutist perspective that way? They would just be an obstacle. They would just be an inhibition. They would just be a collectively overextended contrivance state that you didn't choose objectively. That, right, you were born into it, the non-consensual social contract, and then you were given the situation where you were able to be indoctrinated at a young age in youth before you ever got to think for yourself critically. You're too young, and then by the time you're old enough, now you're constantly beholden to this constant contrivance, social contrivance, reinforcement, and closed structure that is insisted upon, that you're constantly accountable to, right? So you can't even think for yourself, or it has a major advantage. And if you want to make a functional argument to say, well, it's valuable, it's true because it works, even that's not consistent, then you can hold a functional basis and hold it consistently accountable, or it would invalidate itself. But also, even beyond that, you have the ability to consider that the consistent accountability would point to the fact that you would at least make that choice for yourself, self-actualize from an inherent base minimalistic state, right, which you never had the chance or choice to do that. And then you also have the ability to consider that, just it was not chosen, so therefore it's, by that logic, well, you could say, well, China is very productive, or certain countries throughout history have been productive under like a regime, under like some propaganda. That doesn't mean that if something's functional to some degree, not even entirely fully consistent or measurable, but just because something is productive doesn't mean that it's logical or consistent or right by whatever arbitrary moral standard, etc., you might have. So, right, if you want to use, oh, well, it's functional, but even then, okay, you would suspend morality then for greater function if function is really the criteria basis. And again, the key consistency and credibility would come down to the ability to outwardly insist upon something such that you would have, outwardly insist upon it to other people, or again, overextend it and force it upon others and assert it as though it's some absolute empirical standard with authority, rather than simply practice it yourself. So if you're vouching for the state, then you're also vouching for the conflict of contrivance that goes along with it. So you would have that as a consideration. And so again, how we would exactly manifest this in short form, lowest common denominator contrivance amongst the human functions of this world would be a different consideration entirely. But perhaps avoidance of them would be the best consideration of all. You would think something would just happen normally, and somebody would just run into me, but I'm certainly not seeking out conflict. What is that? Is that a bug, or that's just part of the immersive RP experience, that things really do come falling down like that? That's a principle also that you could point to, like, it's much easier to destroy contrivance or deconstruct it than it is to create it. You have to spend all those years of indoctrination that all it would take is momentary objectivity to invalidate the whole thing. That's why you fear thought so much, etc. But it's also a case where, oh, we end up right back where we were. It's also a case where we were able to, it takes you decades to build this society up, but then it takes you only days to tear it down. And then you'll blame the person who tore it down. Like, oh, don't you think if you built it a little better, if it was really worth sustaining, it would hold up a little better? The burger shot is okay, but they took away those benches. Yeah, that's my whole thing, though. I'm not seeking anything out. I don't even have to go in there. I don't want to do it. Like, I'm not doing anything. There's a certain amount of player activity that would be sure to happen here. But this character might be just beyond the comprehension of people. Right, it's just too much, but I'm at least laying out what it would be about. And it's amazing that I've tried to bring this both to Reddit and YouTube comments like I did in the one session, and then I also try to bring it to now RP. Like it's really quite a lot. Yeah, I've sort of shown the style, but you would have to present it in a way that people could understand, which of course, like I've explained, that would be very difficult because that's the whole point of contrivance itself. Again, you cannot dissuade with the reason why came about by desire, but also you cannot do it in such a way that you're explaining to them the errors of their ways, but if they realize that or were capable of doing that, they wouldn't do it in the first place. Right, then they wouldn't even be doing that. So that's where cognitive dissonance comes in, like with humor and stuff like that. You can't help but make fun of the artifice of your own contrivance state, but then you still practice it blindly as though it's absolute. So it's a non-accountable false absolute practice to have mass to justify an overextended state, like placing undue emphasis on inherent objective reality just to rationalize reducing it to a half-mass practice where you're not fully committed to it in any one direction. You're just using it as a pretense to achieve your non-basis of self, dependent over extended pretense, zero-sum means, right, that your own self-interest. But even that wouldn't be condemned on like a selfish level that, it's somehow selfish and your fault, or that's like a bad thing. It would be rather recognized that it's not consistent, right? So the issue isn't the standard itself, right? An absolutist has no stake to claim in that, like not telling you what to do, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, but whatever standard or measure you define for yourself, which of course most human functions don't even define one at all because they're not even that self-aware. But even if you did define a measure for yourself, right, that would be step one, whatever it might be, right? You decide that for yourself, like a standard, a measure to hold that you abide by, but it's not important what standard you have, but it is important that you define it for yourself and that you do abide it. But then also, the biggest standard with that would be consistency, and also you can't project it or outwardly insist it upon others. This was the bench I sat on. Did I cause it to go like that or what? Right, you would have to be consistent, have any credibility, and even within that consistency, you're assuming the intent and projecting the measure of somebody else, which again, you just defined for yourself. So you're assuming what other people are about or what they are valuing or prioritizing, and so it creates a fallacy of ability versus will. Like you're assuming, they're just not capable enough to understand or to practice this process. That's absolute. Not that the process may not be absolute, that they might have a different measure that you're just projecting and assuming their intent in the first place. So that's the nature of closed structure contrivance, sort of like false duality and Bolshevik rhetoric, where you would have the ability to consider that everything must be part of an absolute structure that you're practicing, even though you have to actively contrive it and outwardly insist upon it. But it's a case where you have to believe it to be absolute. So anybody who doesn't practice it must just be, it's not a fault of the process or even that any other measure or priority or practice could exist. It must be that, it's just their inability to do it. They're just not as good at doing it. Right, they lack the ability to do what is an absolute process. Not that the process isn't absolute or they could have some other priority or anything else. Or even beyond that, it's the one size fits all, the one and only measure that could possibly exist that anybody could ever have, right? So it comes down to a factor of ability, not will. Let's see if we can still sit on it. What the fuck is that? I don't know if we caused that to actually bug out by sitting on it. It was the same one that I sat on. I don't really see why that would cause that to happen, though. A lot of these servers and interactions are buggy to some degree. I don't know how much credit NoPixel really deserves. Is it just the community basis that's better, or is it the fact that, are they like mechanically better? Because a lot of these servers seem pretty good. I did actually play on there at some point, briefly, but that was maybe before it was so hyped up, obviously. Or there was still a queue time, but it wasn't obviously what it would be today, or there wouldn't even be any queue time at all. You just wouldn't be able to get on there. Yeah, we could almost make it like a McConnell Rhett type of bench sitting vibe a little bit, but again, maybe that would require some cult of personality basis following to make it even interesting, or more activity going on, which the number of people would be relatively the same though. That's the thing. You would have whatever, like for some reason they don't have a bench up there. Now are these actual players doing this? I assume. Well, whatever. We're just introduced the character. I didn't really have any interactions here, and I'm not going to seek them out. Yeah, the absolutist would reveal the artifice of social contrivance just by doing nothing, by mere by mere neutrality, because contrivance is an outward state, an active practice, that you could present it like such that you have the fact that you have to outwardly insist upon it. So by simply being neutral and placing no emphasis, which is not an active outward practice, right, you would reveal the artifice of it right there, because it requires constant outward positive, undue emphasis, overcompensation, etc. Right. So by simply being neutral, you reveal and expose it in a way that doesn't even play into false duality, where like you're anti. You don't have to argue against it. You can just observe it. You can just, be neutral to that particular specified contrivance state as well. And so half mass zero sum means as a validating factor. A lot of these terms people wouldn't understand, right? Have to do like a whole write out. The one thing I don't know is how you can actually see your own character's thing, like my own description, because that would be important for other people to see. Like they walk up to you and they're talking to you, and they could like look at that in your profile, because right, you could like look at somebody and see what their loadout is, what my total whatever, what my character's information is, so that they could obviously value it and react to it or understand it based on that. So I don't know. I'm not going to seek anything out, but we're kind of fleshing out what the character would be all about and espousing even to ourselves. So for a while there, I was actually saying it out loud too. I was, kind of like talking to myself, which would be part of the character potentially too. And it's like that would be valuable, but the problem with it is, I don't know. I don't know if that seems like attention seeking, whether you're kind of doing it like soapboxing, like I'm trying to explain it to these masses of NPCs even walking around, or something like that, or I'm just doing it to my own benefit for myself, right? Like you're just thinking aloud